Okay, picture this. It's August 23rd, 1305, London. And the air is just thick with
Hmm.
this chilling energy. There's a huge crowd, but they're not there for a festival. No, they're waiting for terror. You can almost hear it, right? The scrape of wood, hooves on stone, and this awful sound of, well, of flesh being dragged over cobblestones.
That's a truly grim image.
And being dragged is William Wallace, bound, naked, already brutalized after miles of torment on this wooden frame, this hurdle. But even then, they say his eyes still had this fire, this defiance. He just wouldn't yield.
Absolutely. Even facing that unimaginable end.
So that horrific day, it wasn't just an ending, was it? It felt more like a culmination, a terrible, defiant one. To really get why Wallace burned so bright, and maybe more importantly, why this extreme terror backfired, we need to dive deep today.
Right. We need to look at where he came from.
Exactly. Trace him from, a relatively peaceful start to becoming the symbol of resistance.
Yeah.
And then we have to look at the brutality of his execution.
And the irony, the massive irony of how trying to utterly crush him actually ignited this dream of freedom that just wouldn't die.
Let's start at the beginning then. Wallace's early life seems almost ordinary, given what came later.
Well, ordinary for a landowner's son in the late 13th century, perhaps, born around 1270 in Renfrewshire. We hear he was tall, apparently nearly 6.5 feet, powerfully built.
Oh, that's huge for the time.
Huge. But not just brawn. He was educated, could read, write, knew Latin. So a sharp mind to go with that 6-foot sword he supposedly wielded.
And Scotland itself, before all this kicked off, under Alexander III.
Surprisingly peaceful and prosperous, actually. Right up until Alexander's death in 1286, it was stable.
It's amazing how quickly that stability just vanished.
It really did. Alexander died. Then his heir, his young granddaughter Margaret, the Maid of Norway, died in 1290 on her way to Scotland. Suddenly, no monarch. A succession crisis.
And that's when Edward III of England steps onto the scene. Longshanks.
Yeah, formidable figure himself. Over 6 feet tall, a proven warrior king who'd already subjugated Wales. He was invited to help decide who should be king of Scotland.
Help being the operative word. He saw an opportunity, didn't he?
Oh, absolutely. Conquest. He chose John Balliol, someone he thought he could control, and immediately started making demands. Scottish nobles had to pay homage to him. Legal appeals had to go to English courts.
He even wanted Scottish knights to fight in his wars abroad.
It was a systematic stripping away of Scottish autonomy. And when Balliol finally pushed back, made alliances with France, well, Edward's response was brutal.
The sack of Berwick in 1296.
Just devastating. A major Scottish trading port. Edward unleashed his army, and estimates say, maybe up to 17,000 people, men, women, children, were slaughtered. The chronicles talk about rivers running red with blood. It was a clear message.
And Wallace is seeing all this happen. English administrators taking over Scotty lands. It must have changed something in him.
You have to think so. That fundamental break. Then comes the spark, right? Maybe the story about his wife Marion being killed by English soldiers. Maybe not, but definitely. In May 1297, he kills William Heslig, the English sheriff of Lanark.
That feels like the point of no return.
Exactly. And just a few months later, September 1297, Stirling Bridge. This is where Wallace the tactician emerges.
Yeah, tell us about that. The odds were stacked against him.
Hugely. Maybe 6,000 Scots against 15,000 English. But the English had to cross this narrow bridge. Wallace waited, let maybe half the army cross, then attacked. Total chaos for the English, trapped, nowhere to go. A stunning victory.
And they say Hugh Cressingham, the English treasurer there, was, well, flayed.
Grim, but yes. His skin was supposedly used to make belts or sword straps. A measure of the hatred and fury, Wallace becomes guardian of Scotland.
But a victory like that, Edward wasn't going to let it stand.
No chance. Falkirk, the very next year, 1298. Edward comes himself with a massive army. Heavy cavalry, and crucially, those Welsh longbowmen.
Ah, the longbows.
Yeah.
Game changer.
Absolutely lethal. Arrows piercing armor in 200 yards. Wallace used his schiltrons, these dense circles of spearmen, very bravely, but the longbows just decimated them before the cavalry even charged properly. It was a massacre. Wallace barely escaped.
So after Falkirk, what happens to him?
He resigns as guardian, sort of fades into the background, becomes this ghost figure trying to drum up support abroad. In France, maybe even Rome. But Edward never stopped hunting him. Put a big price on his head.
And eventually someone took the bait.
Yeah, August 1305, near Glasgow. Betrayed by a Scottish knight, John Menteith, captured. Then began that long, humiliating journey south to London. Paraded the whole way.
Designed to break him before he even got to trial.
But it didn't. In Westminster Hall, facing charges of treason, murder, all sorts, he was defiant, famously declared, "I cannot be a traitor to Edward, for I was never his subject."
Powerful words, but it sealed his fate.
Completely. The sentence was the worst possible. Hanged, drawn, and quartered, reserved for the worst traitors. It wasn't just about killing, it was about annihilation, public spectacle, absolute terror.
And the execution itself at Smithfield, it's hard to even describe.
It is. Dragged naked on that hurdle, skin tearing. Hanged, but cut down while still conscious. Then, the drawing. Disembowelment, organs burned while he was alive, castration, finally death, beheading, and his body cut into quarters.
His head put on London Bridge, his limbs sent to Newcastle, Berwick, Stirling, Perth as warnings.
The ultimate warning. Edward thought he'd finally stamped out the rebellion, killed its figurehead in the most horrific way imaginable.
But that's the great irony, isn't it?
The ultimate irony. It had the opposite effect. The sheer brutality didn't cow the Scots. It enraged them. It created a martyr. It fueled the resistance for generations.
Wallace's death became more powerful than his life, in a way. Robert the Bruce picks up the mantle, and later you get the Declaration of Arbroath in 1320.
Exactly. And its words echo Wallace's spirit. It is in truth not for glory, nor riches, nor honors that we are fighting, but for freedom, for that alone, which no honest man gives up but with life itself. It's a direct line.
So Edward's ultimate act of suppression inadvertently created Scotland's most potent symbol of freedom.
Destroyed physically, yes, but his death gave him a kind of immortality. He became the enduring symbol of defiance against overwhelming power.
Makes you think, doesn't it? Even today, what actions, what principles, even when they seem utterly defeated, end up creating that kind of lasting, inspiring legacy. Something for us all to ponder.